There's layers of flavor coming again and again and again as you continue to taste it. We call that a what the fuck moment, and it's something that is kind of like the ultimate test of anything that goes through the kind of R&D process. When we taste it, do you have this sense of surprise? Do you have this sense of Moorishness? It has to be thought-provoking. You have to kind of be interested in how the flavor develops over time, and that's really kind of something that we strive for, something that makes people cock their head to one side, and I love seeing those kind of reactions when people have our drinks.
This is Hotspot, an On the Pass series where we highlight some of the hottest emerging brands and the people behind them. No matter where you are geographically in the world, January is a time that makes us all reflect. Reflect how we've moved in the past and how we want to move in the future. January gives us the opportunity through a cultural and astrological guidepost, like the new year, to start fresh. The gyms are bustling, health and wellness is a priority, and many choose to change or amend their decisions and habits. For many, dry January is a byproduct of that cultural shift, an interest in a more health-conscious start to the year. Some of you will go all in. Many of you can define your January as damp rather than dry. And others don't choose to participate in this at all. No matter what group you fall into or how you choose to enter this year, this episode is for you. This is an episode about flavor, first and foremost. It just so happens to be delivered through a product that is non-alcoholic. But before I go further, happy and healthy New Year. Welcome to On the Pass. I'm Gabriel Ornelas. If you've been with us for the past 5 seasons, welcome back. If you're new to our show, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. We have so much in store for you this year as we build out our media ecosystem in celebration of the icons and innovators across the diverse hospitality industry. You're going to want to make sure you not only follow us on Apple or Spotify, but also on Instagram and YouTube. All of those links can be found in our show notes. Now to our next guest, kicking us off in 2025 and the season 6 opener, Murray Paterson, founder of MURI, an emerging drinks brand inspired by the gastronomic community in Copenhagen, particularly the city's expertise in fermentation. By using obscure ingredients, flavors, and techniques connected to the culinary sphere, Murray and his team are innovating without borders or rules, developing truly delicious non-alcoholic and low-ABV drinks that are far beyond an alternative to wine. You'll love hearing Murray's passion and expertise as he nerds out on flavor and his vision for the overall drinks category. Now let's get into my conversation with Murray Paterson, founder of MURI. I think I wanted to start with, what is it that you do and why do you do what you do?
Well, MURI makes, we call them fermented blends in Copenhagen. They're designed to be an alternative to wine. They're non-alcoholic. And I think, to be honest, the reason that we're doing what we're doing is purely a result of de-alcoholized wines not really making the grade. I mean, there's a quickly growing category of wine alternative of which we're part. It's a pretty broad spectrum between companies that are making things that are very wine adjacent and then companies that are doing slightly off the ball, stranger concoctions like us. But the reason it's growing so quickly is because de-alcoholized wine is not, I don't think, credible to many sommeliers, particularly in the on-trade. And it's given us an opportunity to do what we do.
Yeah, I remember when one of the first conversations we had, you said this is an opportunity to innovate without borders or rules. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I first started off in drinks in cider in the UK. I had jobs ranging from picking apples in apple orchards through to doing a bit of import and export. And English cider making is almost like kind of German beer. It's very, very traditional. Mm-hmm. And I was asking a lot of questions about why were there not more kind of co-ferments, using different fruits along with the apples or using botanicals and things like this. And the answer always was, look, this is the way it's always been done. You can't change it. I found that frustrating. But I don't think that just applies to UK cider. I think alcohol in general is governed by tradition. And it's much, much easier to innovate in a completely new category where there's no rules or kind of stigma about doing something different. Actually, the first time I thought about doing MURI was doing it actually as an alcoholic co-ferment. That was the idea. And then I was just kind of developing the thought process in my mind. And there's much more scope for doing cool stuff by making it non-alcoholic. There's just more room to play, less judgment for sure. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't aware of
less regulations as well currently right now, depending on where you're at in the world as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it makes it far easier. I mean, the minefield of trying to sell non-alcoholic stuff in a wine bottle in New York is still pretty arduous.
It's difficult.
Oh, man. But yeah, it fosters creativity when you've got a completely blank slate. We can do the kind of stuff that we do and get away with it.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited to get into what that stuff is that you do, but I think it's important, as we discussed, for you to maybe give a little bit more of your background and ultimately like how you got your start, because MURI was really started in 2020, but as you were saying, like you've had multiple iterations of this idea, and you've done numerous things, insider and work for other companies that have sort of helped you get to this place that you're at today.
Yeah. I'm 45 now, and I had an early career in the corporate side of business that I found extremely unfulfilling up until my mid 30s. And it wasn't until kind of pretty late in the game that I decided, look, I cannot spend the rest of my life doing something that I don't feel passionate about, and that's when I moved into cider. But I've always been fascinated about gastronomy. I remember, even as a kid, I remember cooking out of. Have you seen that? You got that book, huge Larousse Gastronomique cookbook. Mm-hmm. I remember cooking out of that age 10 and being fascinated by these things, and always just had a kind of joy or a fascination with giving other people joy through food. Mm-hmm. I think it's something that's very special, and it's always seemed to me like a kind of noble way to spend your life. And I wanted to pursue that after I left the kind of corporate world. And after like I was saying, I got a bit frustrated with the kind of traditions in cider. I was just looking around for the most crazy, Willy Wonka style, innovative place, and kind of everyone kind of pointed me to this place called Empirical Spirits in Copenhagen. It just so happened they were doing a tasting at my local restaurant. The week later, I went along. There's a guy called Lars Williams who was founder of Empirical. He was there. We both had a few beers, and I think he must have been a little bit tipsy because he agreed to offer me a job out of the blue, given I had absolutely no distilling experience. But I ended up going to Empirical, which was an offshoot of, set up by two NOMA alumni, mm-hmm. and kind of applies gastronomic and chef technique to the process of making drinks. Moreover, they deal with this kind of art form of blending where you fractionalize flavor. Take a strawberry, for example. You can fractionalize the flavor of a strawberry through distillation and take the flavors that you want from the strawberry, the melon flavor from the strawberry, and start piecing that together. And that became something that really kind of struck home to me. So the idea of piecing different parts of a blend together like a jigsaw to create a whole. Mm-hmm. And that was really kind of the first time that kind of MURI became a clearer idea. Mm. We used to make a lot of kombucha at Empirical, mm-hmm. and we would kind of blend different types of kombucha, different parts of kombucha together to kind of create a refined version. And that was really when I kind of realized that it would be a really cool idea to add some complexity to non-alcoholic drinks, where traditionally I think they lack the kind of complexity that alcohol does. You can do that through blending fractionalized parts together. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a long drawn out process through cider and distillation led me to MURI.
Wow. I'd actually love to get some of your thoughts into more of what you learned and sort of how you refined the art of fermentation and fractionalizing flavor and distillation and everything at Empirical, because I'm sure that obviously working with Lars and the team gave you invaluable kind of experience to ultimately get to where you're at today. But I think it's important, how lucky are you to have gone to a place like Copenhagen, which is really the center of fermentation knowledge in sort of global gastronomy. Like, I mean, it's just so fortuitous and incredible.
Yeah, I mean, really, there's a simple reason why it's become so famous for fermentation. It's just completely down to Noma and how they took fermentation as a core part of their cooking DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Lars, the guy who started up Empirical, was I believe head of the test kitchen there for a long time at the beginning, and was instrumental in getting the fermentation laboratory set up there. He was instrumental in the use of koji there and things like this, and all of this knowledge transferred over to Empirical. And so the general rule of thumb at Empirical was that you would use 3 or 4 different types of fermentation in any one distillate. There was a koji fermentation, there'd be a kombucha fermentation, a pearl barley fermentation. This was just really a way of building up complexity. He took fractionalization to this kind of the nth degree. So whereas probably most distilleries will only take kind of 3, 4, 5 cuts, mm-hmm. On the final spirit run, we were taking over 100 in some cases. So you have 100 5-liter jugs of the same spirit run that you've then got to kind of blend together, and it was real kind of like Willy Wonka stuff. But that obsession to get the best possible flavor to give your customers was something that really struck home. And there were some pretty talented guys at Empirical in Copenhagen, and learning about that level of obsession you need to create something delicious was something that kind of stuck with me.
Before we get into sort of fermentation, blending technique, your process, you're using the word flavor, you're using deliciousness. Obviously, these things are like very subjective, but like, how do you define, like when you think about flavor, like what are you thinking about exactly? Because it can go in so many different directions. And how ultimately have you trained your palate or your nose to understand distinct and complex flavors?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I mean, I think from Murray's standpoint, there has to be something. The flavor has to be dynamic. You have to have you have to almost give the flavor length through having high acidity. And have it balanced with sweetness that gives you almost like a kind of broad spectrum within which to taste many other different types of flavor. I also think that it has to be new and unusual. I want our drinks to give a customer a new experience. It has to be somewhat transformative, and we're not trying to recreate something that's been before. We're not trying to recreate the flavor of wine in any way. We're trying to create something new and a new flavor experience. So I mean, I guess there has to be an element of surprise in the type of flavor profile that we go to in our drinks as well.
But it's like, when I think about flavor, there's so many different components of it. You've got sweetness, you've got the acidity, you've got body and viscosity that changes how ultimately it moves around in your mouth and your taste buds. And, because so much with like food is texture. It's textural, it's like you have that crunchy kale, for instance. If it was wilted, it tastes different. And so like when you all... And maybe you can start talking about ultimately the fermentation and blending and technique through this question. But like, it's like, how do you and the team think about that and come and say, you know what, we figured this out. It's perfect for our palate. So it should be perfect for others.
I don't know if I can swear on your podcast, Gabriel, but we actually, I'm about to, we call it a what, we call it.
You can do whatever you want.
We call it a what the fuck moment, and it's based on experiences that we've had where we've usually in restaurants where you're eating something and you have this kind of epiphany, this moment of epiphany when you realize that something is so delicious you can't quite figure out. There's something almost intangible where everything is living in harmony. There's a dynamism to the flavor. It fills your whole mouth. And swirls around. There's layers of flavor coming again and again and again as you continue to taste it. We call that a what the fuck moment, and it's something that is kind of like the ultimate test of anything that goes through the kind of R&D process. When we taste it, do you have this sense of surprise? Do you have this sense of Moorishness that you want to continue to kind of it has to be thought provoking. You have to kind of be interested in how the flavor develops over time, and kind of I think that's really kind of something that we strive for, something that makes people kind of just kind of cock their head to one side. And I love seeing those kind of reactions when people have our drinks. That's really kind of the end goal of what we're going for. Fermentation itself really is just a tool that we use to make things taste nice in its most simplistic way. It's people often think that we are a fermentation company, really, but I mean it's literally just one weapon in our armory to make things taste delicious. We do other things like smoke ingredients, or we'll use cryofiltration to filter stuff out. We'll use lots of techniques from bar mixology, like fat washing and things like this. And fermentation kind of sits alongside those as techniques that we want to employ just to get the very, very best out of our ingredients. One of the things I've realized, making booze and now making non-alcs, is that you have to work like a shitload harder to make non-alcs taste nice. Booze is such an amazing absorber and conveyor of flavor that you can't really be lazy when you're making non-alcoholic drinks. You have to get exceptional ingredients, and you have to work super, super hard. You have to work them hard to get the best flavor out of them. Otherwise, just water doesn't taste as good as booze. That's so to get non-alcs up to the same level, you've got to employ some real art and kind of craft to be able to make it delicious. We employ fermentation, chef technique, gastronomic technique, and kind of mixology technique as well to try and create something that's exceptionally flavorful.
Yeah, there's a great quote in I think it was from an FT article that said Murray demonstrates how non-alcoholics of the future could be gateways to new flavor rather than just sort of low ABV. I thought that was kind of interesting as we're talking about this, kind of flavor conversation and these WTF, what the fuck moments.
Yeah, sorry for debasing your podcast. I mean, I actually think there's an opportunity for non-alcs really to kind of lead the way for the whole drinks industry in terms of innovation here. As we were just saying, the opportunity to innovate in non-alc, I think, is much greater. And I think we've had a few people say to us that who make RTDs, they're kind of looking at us for new ideas on how to make alcoholic RTDs a bit more interesting. And I mean, it always seemed to me that the drinks industry was ripe for disruption in many ways through the application of gastronomic and chef and mixology techniques. People seem to rule it out just because you've ultimately got to have a product on the shelf that's stable. But I mean, I hope that we're kind of leading the way on kind of trying to push that, and I think maybe we can have an influence not just on the non-alc, but on the wider drinks industry as a whole.
But expand upon that a little bit. Expand upon that statement. What does that mean exactly? Being able to have influence across categories, is that in the types of ingredients that you're using, in the processes that you're utilizing, or just in the unique flavors that you're ultimately, through blending and through techniques, able to come up with? How are you seeing people take inspiration, again, across whether it's non-alc or in the alcohol space?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we don't even really, we try not to distinguish between alc and non-alc that much. We try not to see ourselves as non-alc. I mean, ultimately, we get pigeonholed in the category. But I mean, I see the future of non-alc very much as having to move away from recreating alcoholic drinks, but minus the booze. I mean, I think we have to stop pushing for different categories and different flavors and different types of drink, and whether that's looking to different parts of the world for inspiration or using new techniques in different ways. I think we can do that, and then that's equally applicable in alcohol, non-alc. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really matter. I mean, we might actually make an alcoholic drink in future. I'm not sure, just to kind of prove the point that we're not necessarily completely abstemious of booze.
Yeah.
But
well, and you're not. And I think that goes along with sort of beyond borders and innovation. Is like you're not confined. Murray isn't confined to any one category. And I think you know a couple months ago you said to me, non-alc will be dead soon as consumers go more towards like moderation and everything. And even the last time we spoke, you said you wish you weren't a part of the non-alcoholic category. And you said you're maybe a little anti-non-alcoholic.
Yeah. I mean, God, I mean, it's probably a little bit dangerous to kind of poo-poo the non-alc category, because there's some people doing great things out there. But I mean, I personally don't want us to be part of it. And I mean, a large part of the reason the non-alc category is booming is because big alcohol, the Diageos of this world, are pumping so much money into it.
Mm-hmm.
Because they realize the writing's probably on the wall in the future. They're not going to have too many places to put their marketing dollars. And so, their interest lies solely in having non-alc as a kind of mirror image of themselves. And I don't think kind of de-alcoholized versions of alcoholic drinks work or feel compelling, certainly to me. And I desperately want there to be this kind of move away from viewing drinks purely through the prism of alcohol. And I think that would allow us to be much more innovation in the category.
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with you saying you're potentially anti-non-alcoholic, especially in the way that you've described it. You're not saying you don't want to be a part of a category, but you're saying, like, let's think broader. Let's think bigger into more just a general drinks category like we've discussed. And I think you've said to me, non-alcoholic is a reductive term, and it sort of diminishes the work that you're doing and your team's doing. And by the way, a lot of other people are doing as well. There's some incredible brands out there that are doing some really amazing things. And so I think I want you to talk a little bit about that, but also, like, you said to me, I really want people to understand the incredible work that goes into these blends, and it's super important.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the non-alc category, I just think as a term, it is too reductive. I mean, I think I kind of shy away from it almost as a result of my own politics, where I tend to shy away from kind of exclusionary ideas or absolutist ideas. The world's a beautiful, colorful place, and I tend to be distrustful of viewing it in kind of binary black or white ways. And I tend to shy away from kind of the absolutist part of the non-alcoholic category. And I think that's kind of more in tune with most modern consumers these days. I mean, in the early days of non-alc, I think most consumers were either completely abstaining from alcohol for health reasons, or maybe recovering, or they were pregnant, or they were driving, or whatever. Now, it's fueled by young people who just want to be a bit more mindful, and they'll go out and they'll have a glass of wine, then they'll have a glass of brie, then they'll have a glass of sake, and something else, and can work their way through a night's drinking without getting completely shit-faced like my generation used to. And I honestly think that's the future. I think non-alc companies who still focus on the fact that their non-alc as being their main virtue, I think that there has to be more to it than that. Yeah, I mean, so we tend to hire chefs. We have a brewery, and the processes themselves are quite like any other brewery, but actually the workflow to get the liquids in the tanks it's much more like a kitchen. We hire chefs because they're much more used to the kind of organization of how to process ingredients, process multiple ingredients at one time. And on every single ingredient, we will perform at least one kind of process to try and maximize its flavor. So the guys have worked in places like Noma or Alchemist, and really kind of know
couple good places, Yeah.
Our production and R&D team came from Noma and Alchemist, so we're pretty lucky.
Yeah, I think you're doing all right.
Yeah. And we try, we really try to apply what they learned in their careers to get the best out of it. So most of our drinks will have maybe 4 or 5 different components, usually base fermentations. We'll have a wine, we'll have a water kefir, we might have a kvass, we might have, we've started making amzake recently, doing koji fermentations. And then on top of that, we will just apply techniques like we'll blanch and toast our own botanicals. We actually get a lot of our botanicals through foraging, which is a very MURI kind of thing to do. So we used to actually employ a forager, but there's like all the foragers in Copenhagen are driving around in like Mercedes.
They're doing well. The foragers are doing well in Copenhagen.
Dude, we paid like something like, what was it, about $3,000 for someone to go picking Douglas fir for us for an afternoon, like last year. And I was like, right, screw this, we're doing all of it ourselves. So anyway, we go out into the woods, get a lot of our own botanicals, dry those ourselves. We'll fat wash things, so we'll kind of like render down. We'll like brown butter, add that to liquids that we fat wash. We'll crush fruits and kind of ice clarify them, so we're almost making kind of like ice wines and things like that.
Wow.
Every little possible detail that we can do to an ingredient, we'll do. So like in one of our sparkling rosés, Humile, there's like a pink peppercorn water kefir, and we blanch the pink peppercorns from cold like 7 times. It's in the same way that you would have, garlic to make a garlic puree or something, because we know that removes the harshness of the pink peppercorn. It's that kind of level of detail will apply to even the smallest ingredient that goes into the blend, just to try and get it to sing. And it takes a hell of a lot of work. I mean, when we first started off, we initially thought we were going to try and outsource production, and we spoke to a few people. And they just all laughed at us. They were like, are you serious? You're expecting us to blanch your pink peppercorn 7 times? Are you having a laugh? And so, we do it all ourselves in-house. Everything's done in-house. We crush fruits. Our brewery is actually an old fish smokery, so we've got these huge smokers. We smoke a bunch of stuff there. Everything's done very manually. It is a truly kind of like craft process to get everything ready, but that's the way that we think we can make things taste delicious, and it's fun. It's nerdy. It's like a it is. I still kind of pinch myself sometimes and be thankful for the way this has turned out. We're working in this kind of like Willy Wonka brewery that we do with incredibly talented people doing like stupid shit like cryofiltration for a non-alcoholic drink is it's turned out well.
Yeah, no, it's very cool, and it shows in the product, because I've obviously, you and I have talked many times. I've tried the product, but like without you even saying everything that you're doing, that level of attention to detail shows in the product. It really does. And I'm excited for our listeners in our community to, after this episode, if they're familiar with you or they become familiar with you and discover, is to engage with the product and see for themselves. But I think what will be great is you're talking about sort of some of the ingredients and talking about the process. Murray, talk a little bit about the current portfolio. I think it's super important. It's like your answer to champagne is passing clouds, and like, tell our listenership kind of like what is currently out there, and maybe there's something that will be out in the not too distant future.
Yeah, we've got some exciting stuff coming up. I mean, our OG is Passing Clouds. We launched that getting on for 4 years ago now, and that's our bestseller. That's over in the States. We were trying to make something that would take the place of champagne as an aperitif. And my favorite champagnes are kind of brioche. You get that kind of buttery, bready flavor, which I really enjoy. And so we created a kvass, which is like an Eastern European bread beer to mimic that. So Passing Clouds is based on that. It's like a sourdough starter that we use to inoculate a kind of caramel malt base. It's lengthened on the acidity with a white currant wine, and given a bit of body from a kind of fresh quince, water kefir, and we use some kind of foraged herbs like woodruff, and we throw in some fresh geranium as well. It's kind of sparkling, white, aromatic, Passing Clouds. We named it after Passing Clouds, which was a nightclub that I used to go to, which was completely indescribable place. I probably won't go into too much of the details, but like,
wait, where was it, in the UK, or where was it?
Dalston in northeast London?
No, I don't.
It was an indescribable place, and when we were wondering for a name to call Passing Clouds, I was like, yeah, this kind of fits. It's kind of ethereal.
It's a great name.
And a trippy kind of place.
Wait, is it still around?
No, like so many London nightclubs, it's gone the way of the dodo, sadly.
Yeah.
That's our first one on our bestseller. We have Fade to Black, which is a sparkling red based on fermented blackberries. It also has kvass. We have 2 rhubarb expressions. One's a smoked rhubarb and carbonic raspberry sparkling rosé called Yamile, which is over in the States. Actually, it's our bestseller in the States. There's another rhubarb expression called Sherbet Daydream, which we infuse pickled rhubarb with foraged Douglas fir needles and a red currant wine. Then we have we've actually started to get really good success with koji fermentation. So we cook rice, inoculate with koji, and then make a kind of approximation of amazake. And then we blend that amazake with a water kefir with smoked lavender that we call Koji Rice Series 1, which is over in the States now as well. It's named after, you're a hip hop fan. Do you like KRS-One, yeah. Koji Rice Series 1. Whoop, whoop, that's the sound of the police.
Okay. I love that.
So that's more of a kind of like dessert wine. We're actually, I think, going to release a few more koji expressions over the coming months. Rice gives such an incredible texture to non-alcs. And then we've got two collaborations. So we've released one with the Four Horsemen restaurant in New York. That's a still red, and we are, well, by the time your listeners are listening to this, we'll have released a sparkling strawberry rosé based on strawberries and cream with Anne-Sophie Pique, which is super exciting.
Incredible. Amazing. So how, talk about those recent and upcoming partnerships. How did they come about? How, and ultimately, like, how did they launch? You've already launched the Four Horsemen. You could talk a little bit about that and sort of the partnership there, as well as like how it will be launched with Anne-Sophie Pique.
I mean, the Four Horsemen, we kind of conceived almost exactly a year ago, end of 2023. I met up with Justin Chernow, the beverage director at the restaurant. They've been big fans of ours, I think, probably for about 3 years now. I mean, wow. I remember it was like the most scary tasting I've ever done when we got in there, because like I knew, they've got such a good reputation for the beverage program. The wine list is second to none. Justin has done such a great job on that. I remember the first time I met him, I was shaking. I was so nervous, but he's just the most lovely guy, and immediately got what we were trying to do, got what we were about, and has been a big supporter ever since. I remember actually leaving that tasting, calling the team back home just because I thought it was one of the best validations of what we were doing. But we wanted to do a collaboration with someone in New York, and they seemed like the obvious choice. Justin was really up for it.
It's a great partner.
And we had dinner a year ago, and Justin wanted something a bit more kind of wine adjacent than what we normally do. He was he didn't want any bullshitty fat washing or cryo filtration or any of this nonsense, and just wanted something super solid that would give Four Horsemen guests a great experience to pair alongside just the dishes that come out of the amazing dishes that come out of the restaurant. And we kind of had a bit of back and forth over last winter, spring. Justin was mainly concerned that as Copenhagenites, we have a predisposition to incredibly volatile acidic wines, which is somewhat true. Copenhagen's some pretty wild stuff. And once we got the acidity down with Justin, I think it was summertime, I met up with him at Character in Austria, a wine festival, and we kind of approved it. A tragic part of the story is we were just about to launch it in August, and Justin passed away just as we were about to send the bottle over.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to hear that.
It's hard to talk about. I didn't know Justin very well, but I considered him a friend. He was a big champion of what we were doing, and his loss, his passing, is just a huge loss for the industry.
Absolutely,
the world over. He had a great impact. But yeah, we were wondering what to do for a long time, and the bottles turned up at the restaurant. I went over to New York and we had a chat with them, and we decided to put it out with the hope that it'll add a bit to his legacy. He was damn proud of it. Yeah,
absolutely.
He said it was. He said it was unsurpassed in terms of its quality for a red, and that's high praise coming from Justin. So, yeah, it's a bittersweet. Yeah, I hope
absolutely.
I hope it goes a little way to honoring what an incredible guy he was. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope. Obviously, he had his pause on everything that was going on in the beverage program, but that's obviously something specific to your product, something that you all really kind of co-developed and iterated, and it's he put his name on it in a big way. So I hope people understand that and understand sort of how special that product is, because it takes a lot to bring something like that to life and a partnership like that.
Yeah, I mean, there are actually cryo-filtered tomato water in there, as well as lacto-fermented beetroot.
You snuck that in, Murray. You snuck that in.
Yeah, some lacto-fermented beetroot and a Stevens Bear sour cherry wine. So I mean, it's a very complex one, but it's a super smooth, easy drinking red that Justin got right. He got us to tone down the excessive parts around it and got it into this really nice, easy drinking red that I hope people will enjoy.
Yeah, I can't wait to try it. I'm gonna have to go next time I'm in Brooklyn. I'm gonna have to go check that out.
The Anne Sophie Peak one that's taken a lot longer. That's almost 2.5, almost 3 years in the making. I mean, Anne Sophie Peak's a legend of gastronomy. She got something stupid like 10 or 11 Michelin stars.
Yeah, something like that. I lost count. I lost count.
I mean, I think I went down to a restaurant in Valence in the south of France, and it's this beautiful place. I believe that restaurant, which has been in their family for well over 100 years. I think they've had they first got 3 Michelin stars in the 1930s. So there's this incredible history of this.
The history is insane there. I mean, it's just, it's nuts.
You walk in and in the lobby, there's this kind of glass case with all the Michelin guides
the Michelin books. I know. I've been. It's incredible.
Insane.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, all the photography and amongst that case is old photos and, in black and white, and the old Michelin books. I mean, it's you step into history in a lot of ways. It's fascinating.
I mean, I don't know how you deal with the weight of kind of expectation after with that legacy.
I think she's done quite well with that.
I mean, she's probably the most remarkable person I've met in the industry. She's this beautiful, warm, down to earth, very witty, funny character, but just with this unbelievably exceptional palate. I went down. I had the best gastronomic experience of my life. I sat at the chef's table, and she chatted to me whilst I ate a few of the dishes from the kitchen. It was just, I mean, the cooking was just on a completely another level, like very, 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 very modern, very, very elegant. She wanted something modern and elegant to have as that would be celebratory at the start of a guest's experience at the restaurant, and we went away to try and develop that. And it's been probably the R&D part of it, kind of 2 years going through multiple tests. We had 2 routes to begin with. One was down a koji route that kind of got quite a long way, but then it was just a bit too kind of off the wall. And then we went down a route inspired by strawberries and cream, which is actually quite nice for me. You know, being a Brit, we have a big affinity with the strawberries and cream, you know, with Wimbledon and everything. And we took that as an inspiration and developed this drink that's coming out on the 3rd of January called Uzume. 3 different types of 3 different fermentations of strawberries. So we have a strawberries fermented with a wine yeast, lacto-fermented strawberries, and a carbonic maceration of strawberry blended with tomato wine, and then a yogurt whey caramel. It sounds a bit sweet, but it turns out pretty dry. And we had a touch of vanilla that we smoked in the smoker for a few days, and it just gives a kind of touch of complexity.
Incredible. I mean, it sounds amazing.
Dude, that was also just like, I mean, just terrifying doing the tastings there. Just she's such a kind of master, and turning up with bottles of stuff. You know, we had like 12 bottles that we were giving to her to try and taste. I've never been so scared, but she was also super positive about it. She's just an amazing, warm, positive person, and I think we're both pretty pumped about what people think when it comes out. So yeah,
well, those are some incredible partners and super exciting partnerships. I have to imagine there will be more on the way, and more collaborations, and especially as that one comes out into the world, and if people have engaged now in the past month or so with the 4 Horsemen, I'm sure there's some more exciting collaboration potential in the future.
Yeah, I mean, we're chatting to a few people about that. They're hard to do, man. Right?
Of course.
You're kind of working with establishments on the other side of the world. So there's this enormous lag time in terms of trying to get feedback on the blends, and trying to get 2 companies to marry up into a cohesive vision can be tricky.
It's an exercise in patience.
But yeah,
you know, in a lot of ways.
If you can get an opportunity to go and sit at the chef's table in Valence, then
come on,
obviously.
Yeah,
but I mean, we're looking to do a few more of those. The next one we've actually got coming out, it's less of a collab and more of a kind of special edition for Cohen, which is a 2 Michelin star Korean Danish restaurant in Copenhagen, that we're doing we're doing Koji Rice Series 2 with them. That's going to be coming out in around about Easter. I mean, I think the kind of the future focus for us is more, now that we've done these collaborations, maybe start to look a bit more internally, become much more focused on terroir, I think. So we're looking at, I think through my own kind of insecurity, as I've spoken about with the non-alc category, we've like thrown the kitchen sink at everything we've done. And I think now, you know, we've got the confidence now, I think, to kind of sit back and try and pare back what we're doing. So actually, one of the collaborations we're working on next year is with an Austrian winery called Weingut Jaunegg, which has a vineyard called Murray. And in that vineyard, they have peach trees, they have apricots, they've got a bunch of amazing flowers, they've got the vines, and we're going to do a kind of 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer exploration of the terroir of that place. So that's going to be a kind of experiment in kind of moving towards a more kind of terroir driven approach. So that's going to be an exciting collaboration coming up, one we're looking forward to doing. You know, we're all food nerds at Murray. The only kind of things we really talk about are kind of food experiences and what we're going to have for dinner and stuff like this. And
Yeah. What's the next meal? Let's start talking about the next meal.
And we just love to go and to work with other people and just be inspired by them. Our production and R&D guys are always encourage them to go off and stage at different places and get inspiration from them. So working with others is just a fun thing to do, mainly.
Yeah, absolutely. Murray, what's your hope for the Murray brand and your team in 2025?
I mean, I think we've got we were lucky enough to get some investment last year. And I think the big challenge for us is to try and get an aesthetic that kind of matches up with the liquids. The focus for us, as we've been a startup up till now, has just really been kind of on making sure the drink tastes nice. And I think that the challenge for us is to now try and build up a brand around that, which kind of matches the level of the drinks. We just want to make delicious drinks. We want to have regular releases that kind of fits in with us kind of really putting a lot of emphasis more on e-commerce probably in the second part of the year. We're going to be building up a portfolio of kind of special releases that we'll be able to release as kind of test kitchen one-offs that I'm really looking forward to. We just, as I say, we're just nerds. We just like to put things out there that and see what people think, and hopefully people will find them delicious. That's the main plan.
It's a good plan. I think people, as they discover your products, will find them incredibly delicious. And so I encourage our listeners to go in the show notes, check out the website, check out the Instagram, and find out where in your neighborhood the Murray product is, or will hopefully be coming to in 2025. Murray, what's a life lesson you can leave us with?
This is just purely a reflection of something that I found since doing Murray. You're never too old to pursue something you're passionate in. I remember, as I say, I've always wanted to work in food and drink, and when I asked people in food and drink, even in my 20s, whether I should move into it, they're like, Christ, no, what, are you mad? This is kind of like this is a young man's game,
Like, what's wrong with you?
It's like asking anyone if you should open a restaurant. I find it sad. Everyone. Yeah,
it is sad.
Jesus, I mean, do it. If the thing I find is if you're passionate about something to the extent that I was about Murray, you think about it constantly, you're never too old. And I'm so thankful. Even in my late 30s, I segued into food and drink. If you're passionate about something, nothing can stand in your way. It'll be a success, I'm sure. You must hear that all the time, don't you? Jesus, everyone's like, Jesus, never start a restaurant, man. Never.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it's an unfortunate statement. I think it's a true statement in some regards. But I think if you're passionate about it, I think if you're talented enough, or you're a curator of sorts, and you're not the chef, owner, but you're a creator, you're a curator. I think I agree with what you said. If you're passionate enough, you'll find your community. You'll find the people who want to invest, who want to stay and play with you. But you have to be in it. You have to be in it 100%. And you have to be a smart business person, as well. Let's not forget, you can't just rely on just passion, and I think that's also about surrounding yourself with people who are better and smarter and more interesting and can help you bring your vision to life. I was having this conversation with someone the other day where, you look at sort of the iconic chefs, and I won't name all of them, but where are they opening their restaurants? Well, they're opening them in hotels. They're opening them with major real estate partners who are really covering the costs. And I'm like, is that the future, sadly, of big restaurants? Is you need to sort of have a real estate partner who kind of takes the edge off, but financially, and sort of for them, it's an amenity
to their other offering, whether it's a hotel, whether it's a major office building, in New York or London or something like that. And that saddens me a little bit, because I think the neighborhood spots we need, we need places to congregate. We need places to come together, to celebrate, to mourn, to do all the things that we do. I always say, like, look at, even just coffee shops. Look how coffee shops or tea houses, are this place to come together, and be in community with each other. And I think the thing that what I'm seeing as we head into 2025 is this conversation and need for people to come together, to be together. We were separated for so long during COVID. Technology in a lot of ways, although it's connected us, it's separated us as well. And so I'm seeing more of like the smaller, intimate experiences. And that's where I think a young brand like yourself, not having the Diageo dollars, but does have the opportunity to be that catalyst and create moments of connection and bringing people together through great food, through great products. Like, I'm always trying to encourage my partners to do that, be community builders, because we really need that, as we had it was in this new year.
Yeah, people don't talk enough to each other. I mean, actually, when we first started off, one of the things that I really wanted to make was a bottle that would that you could have a conversation about, that you can put on the table when you go to a dinner party for drinkers or non-drinkers. So yeah, I mean, I hope in some small part we might be able to assist in getting people chatting, because no one's ever said a truer word than what you've just said there.
Yeah, well, I think you are. I think you all are absolutely doing that, and I appreciate you. I'm proud to have you all a part of our On the Path community, and thanks to Roman as well for connecting us, and it's fun. I'm excited for us to get together and share more of your journey.
Listen, Gabriel, thanks so much for the opportunity. My first podcast, it's been a blast. Been a blast to talk to you, and great to download all the dumb shit we're doing at MURI onto your listeners. I hope they find it interesting.
They will.
On the Pass is hosted and produced by me, Gabriel Ornelas, and edited and mixed by Dylan Agajanian, with original music by Dylan Agajanian.